She showed me paradise. I never wanted to return to that house. Every memory inside it felt like a scar I'd spent years trying to forget. But life pushed me back, and the moment I stepped through the door, I felt something watching me. It had been years since I'd been here. My grandparents had renovated everything. New walls, new furniture, even a new patio outside. On the surface, the house was different. But the air, the silence, the feeling pressing against my skin was exactly the same as when I was a child. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down I knew this place never stopped waiting for me. I thought moving back would help me heal. Instead, it woke something up. The first week back, my grandmother called every day. She sounded worried, too worried. But my grandfather, he didn't call. He showed up every weekend. Always with the same excuse, I need to check something with the water in the basement. He wouldn't tell me what it was, wouldn't explain, wouldn't even let me join him. He'd walk in, go straight down the basement stairs and reappear less than 10 minutes later, without a tool in his hand, without a drop of sweat, without saying a word about what he did. I asked him once, he said it was too much work for me to understand, but he looked scared when he said it, like the truth was something I wasn't allowed to hear. Back then, I let it go. Now, I understand why he came so often. There was a time when this house wasn't filled with fear. A time when my mom was happy. When my dad left, it broke her completely. But the divorce settlement gave her enough money to start fresh, and she used it to buy this house. We moved in, and for a while, things felt normal again. She went back to laughing, smiling, cooking, singing while she cleaned. She even started dating a man named Dave. He made her glow again, like the darkness around her had finally lifted. But one day, with no warning, she ended things. No explanation, no tears, just silence. After that night, she was never the same again. The first time I realized something was truly wrong. I was only a kid. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I left my room half asleep, rubbing my eyes, and I noticed my mom standing perfectly still in the hallway. Her ear was pressed against the wall. Her eyes were wide open. She whispered softly, then paused, then whispered again, as if someone inside the wall was whispering back. I said, "Mom?" She snapped around so violently I felt my heart stop. Her pupils were enormous. Her skin had turned pale and lifeless. Dark bags weighed down her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She smiled at me slowly. Stiffly wrong. It wasn't my mother's smile, and I knew it. The scariest part wasn't what she did that morning. It was how fast she switched back to normal. In the hallway, she looked possessed. Pale skin, huge pupils, a smile that didn't belong on a human face. But an hour later, she was in the kitchen cooking breakfast, humming softly, moving like nothing had happened. Like the woman I saw earlier, was a completely different person. After that, I stopped leaving my room early. I didn't want to risk seeing her whispering to the walls again. The tension in the house felt thicker every day. Then she lost her job. My grandparents tried talking to her, but she exploded at them, accusing everyone of plotting against her. She pushed everyone away, she pushed me away. And that's the moment the nightly conversations began. The first night I heard her, I knew something was wrong. Around 3 a.m., my mom's voice slipped through the hallway, soft, shaky, like she was answering someone I couldn't hear. She spoke, paused, replied again. Not like a phone call, not like talking to herself. Some nights she sounded terrified. Other nights furious, and sometimes she laughed. A broken, twisted laugh that didn't sound human. I pulled the blanket over my head and waited. I didn't sleep again until the sun came up. Whatever she was speaking to wasn't in her room. One night I made the mistake of going downstairs. I woke up needing the bathroom, and the one upstairs wasn't working. Half asleep, I walked past the basement door. That's when I heard her, my mom, but her voice wasn't normal. She sounded like she was begging, pleading with something hiding in the darkness below. My hands started shaking. I didn't flush. I barely breathed. I just listened to her voice echoing up from the basement, filled with fear I didn't understand. A few days later, curiosity finally broke me. My mom was asleep. The house was silent, and I couldn't stop staring at the basement door while I was eating a sandwich at the kitchen table. Something inside me whispered, "Go look." So I opened the door and walked down the cold wooden steps, feeling the air get heavier with every step I took. When I reached the bottom, I searched the wall with my hand until I felt the light switch. My fingers brushed it, I flipped it on, and everything changed instantly. The basement walls were covered in writing. Dark red Sharpie filled every inch, names, dates, words, symbols, chaotic lines that wrapped around the room like warnings. One phrase repeated over and over, "It's coming." And after each one, and was my name. Dozens of dates were scribbled everywhere. All of them pointed to the same day, exactly 1 month away. I ran upstairs shaking so badly I nearly fell on the last step. After I saw the basement, my mom didn't hide anything anymore. She went downstairs more often. She laughed down there, she cried, she screamed. Sometimes she spoke like she was comforting a child. Other times she sounded excited, like she was waiting for something to arrive. Once I pressed my ear against the basement door, trying to make out the words she was saying. But she wasn't speaking English or any language I've ever heard. The air in the house felt heavier every day, like something was waking up inside the walls. And the date on the basement wall was getting closer, way too close. The closer the date came, the worse things got. My mom barely slept anymore. She wandered through the house at night, muttering to herself in a voice that didn't sound like her own. Sometimes I heard her pacing outside my room, breathing heavily through the door. Other times she stood completely still in the hallway for minutes at a time, as if she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Every morning she looked more drained, her eyes darker, her hands trembling. It felt like she was waiting patiently and for something only she understood. And deep down, I knew that whatever she was waiting for was almost here. One afternoon I tried calling my grandparents. My mom always kept her phone locked, but I hoped maybe she slipped up. She didn't. Every attempt ended with the same screen. I searched for the kitchen knives next. They were all gone. She'd hidden them somewhere. Every drawer was empty. Even the cheap plastic ones were missing. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted something to protect myself. So I found a smooth rock in the backyard and kept it under my pillow at night. It made me feel a little safer, a little more prepared. But even then, I knew a rock wouldn't be enough. The day circled on the basement wall finally arrived. It was supposed to be the beginning of Christmas break, a time every kid looks forward to. But not me, not in that house. My mom went to sleep around 8 in the morning, just like she had been doing for weeks. I sat alone in the living room, barely touching my breakfast while staring at the basement door. I knew something was planned for today. I could feel it in the air. A tension that made my skin crawl. So I went upstairs, locked myself in my room, and held the rock tightly in my hand, waiting for her to wake up. At exactly 4 in the afternoon, my mom woke up. I heard the bathroom door open, then the sound of her footsteps moving through the house. She called my name once, then again, louder. Her voice didn't sound like my mother's. There was something sharp in it, something excited. I didn't answer at first. I hoped she would think I wasn't home. Instead, I heard her search every room downstairs, calling for me again and again. Then her footsteps started coming up the stairs, slowly, too slowly. When she reached my room, she knocked once and whispered my name like it was a secret. I finally answered her, forcing my voice to shake so she would think I was sick. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Her hair was messy, her nightgown covered in basement dust, and her eyes, wide, bright, desperate, looked nothing like the woman who raised me. She walked toward my bed, smiling with that same unnatural grin I'd seen on her before. She touched my forehead and told me I didn't feel warm. Then her eyes drifted to my hand, the one holding the rock. She grabbed it so quickly I didn't even have time to react. She told me to get up, said she had something to show me, said it would only take a moment, and when she took my hand, her grip felt impossibly strong. She pulled me out of bed with a strength she shouldn't have had. I tried to fight her grip, grabbing the door frame, the railing, anything, but she dragged me down the hallway like I weighed nothing. I begged her to stop. I cried, screamed her name, but she kept repeating the same sentence in a voice that didn't sound like hers anymore. "Come on, sweetie. It will be so fun." We reached the top of the stairs, and her hand tightened around my wrist so hard I thought my bones would crack. She pulled me toward the basement door as I clawed at the walls, desperate for anything to hold on to. Nothing worked. I couldn't stop her. She opened the basement door, and the cold air rushed up the stairs like a breath. I begged her not to take me down there. I told her I didn't want to see whatever she wanted to show me, but she didn't stop. She kept whispering, "Just trust me, you'll understand soon." Step by step, she dragged me into the darkness. The wooden boards creaked under our feet. She didn't even turn on the light, She walked through the dark basement as if she could see perfectly. When she finally flipped the switch, I saw the table in the center of the room. A wooden table, with restraints attached to the sides. My entire body froze. I knew exactly what she intended. She lifted me onto the table like I was a doll. I tried to wriggle free, but her strength was unbelievable. Inhuman. She buckled the restraints around my wrists and ankles tight enough that I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Then she went to the corner of the basement and pulled something from under the stairs. A knife long, shiny clean. I screamed for her to stop. I begged, I cried. But she just smiled and stroked my hair, telling me it wouldn't hurt. Telling me the beings would make sure of that. Telling me she loved me. She started talking to the air as if someone else was in the room with us. "Please," she whispered, "show yourselves to him. He's scared. He doesn't understand yet. Help him see paradise." Her face softened for the first time in months. She looked like my mom again, the real one. She was crying, begging, pleading with something I couldn't see. And then I heard it, a faint sound, a whisper that wasn't hers. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time, wrapping around me like warm breath. I understood why she was doing this, and that terrified me even more. The whisper grew stronger, soft, beautiful, impossible to describe. It filled my head with images I couldn't explain, colors I'd never seen, places that felt like heaven, voices that made my skin tingle. For a moment I forgot I was tied down. I forgot my mom was holding a knife. I forgot everything. All I wanted was to go where that voice was calling me. My mom dropped to her knees beside the table, sobbing with relief. "I knew you'd understand," she whispered. "I knew you were chosen too." Her hand tightened around the knife. She raised it above me, and I didn't even scream. I wanted her to take me there. My mom held the knife above me. For a moment, she didn't move at all. Her eyes were fixed on something behind me, something I couldn't see. She whispered into the air again, quiet and trembling like she was answering someone. The whisper I heard earlier still echoed in my head. Warm, soft, calm. Too calm. Then a loud crash came from upstairs. Dust fell from the ceiling. My mom froze completely. Her breath stopped. Her eyes widened with fear. Real fear. She wasn't scared of me. She wasn't scared of the knife. She was scared of whatever was now inside the house. For the first time that night, I felt a small flicker of hope. My mom snapped her head toward the stairs. The knife shook in her hand. She didn't move, didn't breathe. She just listened. Then she whispered, "Not now. They're here," in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear it. I didn't know who they meant anymore. My grandparents, the voices? The beings she believed in? Or something else entirely? She stepped away from the table slowly, her footsteps dragging like she didn't fully control her body. I stayed perfectly still, afraid to make a sound. The footsteps upstairs grew louder, heavy, fast, coming straight toward the basement door. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to hide. The basement door burst open. 2 officers rushed down the stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. My mom spun around with the knife, her face twisted in panic and rage. She screamed something I couldn't understand, not words, more like sounds. One officer shouted at her to drop the knife. She didn't listen. She charged. They grabbed her, fighting to hold her down. She thrashed like an animal, kicking, twisting, screaming for them to let Paradise take him. I pulled at the restraints, trying to escape, trying to get to her, but my wrists were locked tight. The whisper in my head grew louder as the room filled with chaos. The officer closest to me rushed over and unbuckled the restraints. My wrist stung as the straps snapped open. He lifted me off the table, holding me tightly against his vest. His radio crackled, voices shouting for backup and medical support. My mom kept screaming, begging them to stop, begging them to let the beings finish the transition. The officers forced her to the ground. Even then, she kept fighting with impossible strength. It took both of them to keep her pinned. I was shaking uncontrollably, but the whisper in my mind still called to me. Soft, warm, promising paradise. The officer carrying me ran up the stairs, away from the basement, away from my mother's screams. Outside the house, red and blue lights flashed against the snow. Cold air hit me like a shock, but the whisper in my head never faded. Paramedics rushed over, asking questions I couldn't answer. I kept looking at the house, at the basement window. I swear I saw something move down there. Not my mom, something else. Something watching us leave. They put me in the ambulance, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. I tried to focus on the voices around me, but all I could hear was that soft whisper telling me not to be afraid. As the doors closed, I felt it move through me, a warmth that shouldn't exist. And for a moment, I wanted to go back inside. The ambulance felt too bright, too clean, too far away from the basement. The paramedic kept asking my name, my age, if I knew where I was. I answered, but my voice sounded distant, like it wasn't coming from me. Every few seconds, the whisper returned, soft, warm, telling me everything was going to be all right. I watched the house disappear through the back window. For a moment, I swore I saw my mom standing in the basement doorway, her face pressed against the glass. But she was still inside, screaming as officers held her down. So whatever I saw wasn't her. At the hospital, the lights buzzed softly above me. Doctors talked in quick, sharp voices, clipboards, questions, hands checking my pulse, my breathing, my eyes. I barely heard them. All I could focus on was the quiet hum inside my head. The whisper slid between their voices, telling me not to worry, telling me that this place was only temporary. A nurse asked if I remembered what happened. I nodded. But the moment I tried to speak, the whisper grew louder, wrapping around every thought. It felt protective, like it didn't want me to talk. They kept me overnight for evaluation. I lay in a small room with white walls and a single window overlooking the parking lot. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the basement. The red writing, the table, the knife. My mom's face caught between joy and terror. Then the whisper returned, clearer than ever. It showed me flashes, a place with no walls, no darkness, just colors I couldn't name and voices that felt like light. I opened my eyes, gasping. The room felt colder, like something else had entered with me. A psychiatrist met with me the next morning. He sat across from my bed, legs crossed, speaking softly. He asked about my mom, about the basement, about the whispers. When I hesitated, the whisper slid into my mind again, gentle, warning me. So I lied. I told him I didn't hear anything, that I didn't remember much, that I must have been confused. He studied my face for a long time, as if he knew I was hiding something. Finally, he wrote something down and said I'd be released soon. The whisper felt pleased, warm, comforting, like I had passed a test. My grandparents picked me up later that day. My grandmother hugged me tightly, fighting tears. My grandfather barely spoke. He kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror as if expecting something to burst out of me. When we got home, they tried to make things normal. Food, warmth, soft voices. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. Late that night, as I lay in their guest room, I heard it again. The whisper, clear, come closer than ever. It drifted across the room and curled into my ear like a breath. Soon, it said, very soon. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the room felt like it was breathing with me. My grandparents tried to act normal in the morning, but I saw the fear in their faces. They kept watching me as if something might still be inside me. The whisper wasn't loud anymore, but it was there, waiting. Without realizing it, I walked into the hallway. My chest felt warm, my feet moved on their own, and suddenly I was standing in front of the basement door. It was closed, locked, untouched, but the air around it felt colder, heavier, like the house was holding its breath. The whisper slid through my mind, soft, careful, almost excited. My grandmother grabbed my arm before I could touch the basement door. Her hand was shaking, her voice even mere. "Don't go near it," she whispered, as if the door could hear her. She pulled me back into the kitchen, away from the cold air leaking through the cracks. But even there I felt it, something pressing against my thoughts, soft and patient. My grandfather came in from outside and froze when he saw our faces. He didn't ask questions, he didn't need to. He just said, "Did it open again?" My grandmother nodded slowly. My chest tightened. It wasn't the first time, not for them. That night, as I lay in the guest bed, the whisper drifted into the room again, closer than before, clearer. It didn't say a word, but I understood exactly what it wanted. I woke up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, without knowing why. The house was silent, too silent. Then I heard it, a faint knock. Not on my door, not on the wall. From below, from the basement, it came again, slow and rhythmic, like someone was tapping their fingers against the wood. I sat up, barely breathing. The whisper slid into my head, soft and inviting, as if it had been waiting for me to wake up. "It's time," it seemed to say. The air in the room grew colder. My hands trembled. I knew I should wake my grandparents. I knew I should run. But instead, I stood up and stepped into the hallway. The hallway felt longer than before, as if the house was stretching itself to pull me forward. I moved slowly, my feet dragging over the wooden floor, guided by something I couldn't fight anymore. The basement door stood at the end, closed but humming with a quiet vibration like it had a heartbeat. As I approached, the whisper filled my head completely, warm, comforting, almost loving. It showed me flashes again, bright colors, shapeless beings, a world with no fear and no pain. I reached out and touched the doorknob. It wasn't cold this time. It was warm, alive. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. I turned and saw my grandfather standing there, eyes wide, face pale. "Step away," he said, not angry, terrified. My grandfather rushed forward and pulled me away from the door just as it shifted inward, opening a crack on its own. Cold air spiraled out, mixed with the soft hum of something waiting below. He shut the door hard and locked it, hands shaking. But the whisper didn't stop. It wrapped around my thoughts, gentle and patient, as if the door meant nothing to it. My grandmother appeared behind him, crying quietly, muttering, "It's starting again, just like with her." "With her, my mother," the whisper pulsed warmly, almost agreeing. That night, long after they thought I'd fallen asleep, I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The whisper hovered above me, closer than ever, clear as a breath on my neck. "Soon," it murmured. "Soon you'll understand." And for the first time, I wasn't afraid, I was curious. I didn't expect the whisper to follow me to my grandparents' house. But that night, I felt it the moment the lights went out. The room grew colder, the air heavier, and the silence sharper than before. Around midnight, someone knocked on my door. Soft, slow, 3 careful taps. I froze completely. The whisper slid into my head like a warm breath. "Don't be afraid." Another knock followed, then a slow, dragging sound like fingers sliding down the wood. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to scream, to call for my grandparents, but my voice wouldn't move. The footsteps outside my door shifted, turning away, walking slowly down the hallway. The whisper pulsed gently, almost pleased. And for the first time, I wondered if the knocks were meant to protect me, not scare me. My grandfather wasn't a man who frightened easily, but whenever the basement was mentioned, his hands shook. One afternoon, he told me the truth. The part they never wanted me to know. "What happened to your mother didn't start in that house," he said softly. "It started long before." He told me how she used to stare at walls for hours, how she whispered to herself even when no one was around, how she woke up at night laughing and crying at things she couldn't explain. She heard something, he said, something that wanted her. The whisper tightened inside my head, almost protective. My grandfather leaned closer. "The basement door doesn't open by itself. It opens when someone listens." I wanted to promise I would stay away, but the whisper pulsed again, warm, gentle, patient. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want to stay away. The night the basement spoke, the house changed. The air grew heavy, the shadows deeper, as if the darkness itself was watching me. The whisper didn't wait this time. It came immediately, clear, close, calling me back. I stepped into the hallway, barefoot on cold wood. Every step felt guided, as if something walked beside me. The basement door stood at the end, tall and silent. Then it creaked open. Just an inch, just enough. A low humming drifted out, warm and soft, like a song sung from underground. The whisper echoed it perfectly. "Come closer." My hand reached the door. The wood felt warm, almost alive. Then my grandmother screamed my name. The humming stopped. The crack of darkness disappeared. But the warmth in the door lingered. And deep down, I knew the basement hadn't called me by mistake. It was welcoming me home.